Hi, everybody. I think we will get started. My name is Shireen Mansour. I am the coordinator of the Journalism New Media Postgraduate Certificate Program at Sheridan that just celebrated its 20th anniversary this past year. And I have also been teaching journalism at Sheridan since 1999. I'd like to begin by saying, in light of yesterday's difficult news from our premier and the medical community, we hope that this afternoon's celebration will provide you with some reprieve and some joy as we reconnect. So welcome. This academic year marks 50 years of journalism at Sheridan, 50 years of training Canada's journalists, and we are absolutely thrilled to have you join us today as we celebrate all of you and your accomplishments. I'd like to take a moment also to welcome this year's class of journalism students, both first and second year students that are joining us. So here is how things are going to work. We have some special remarks first to share with you, followed by a celebratory toast that will be given by two of our current journalism faculty. We have also interviewed some of our retired journalism faculty, and we also have a very special keynote address from two of our existing part-time journalism faculty about their current experiences working in the field. So before I hand things over to our MCs, I wanted to share with you a bit of a bizarre but wonderful phenomenon we've experienced in the Journalism New Media program that some of you may or may not be aware of. This program has the uncanny ability of attracting twins. Now, we're not sure why that is, but it has been a great source of fun and pride over the years for us. I think we are actually up to 16 or 17 sets of twins now. Usually someone in the class is a twin, and then they introduce their twin to us at some point throughout the academic year. But sometimes we've had twins study in the program together. So we have asked two sets of twins to MC today's events. And so I'd like to introduce you first to one set of twins you may recognize if you spent some time in front of the television recently. Here are Charlesy and Carly Agro.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Charlesy Agro. I'm one of the hosts of CBC's Marketplace and a very proud Sheridan alum. So excited to be here with you this evening.
Hi, and I'm Carly Agro. I'm obviously Charlesy's identical twin sister, and I'm also a very proud Sheridan graduate, also a very proud Bruin soccer team right here. Charlesy and I were part of the class of 2009, and we were a part of the journalism and new media class. And it seems like it was so long ago, but when I look back on my time at Sheridan, it all just kind of seemed to make sense. And I know for sure that I wouldn't be where I am now, working as a host and reporter for Sportsnet Central, if it wasn't for my time at Sheridan. I have had the chance to live and work in both Canada and the United States in broadcasting. And after my time working in the States, I knew that I needed to get some hands-on experience. I knew that I needed to learn some things like how to shoot and how to edit. And Sheridan really gave me that. And ever since I graduated from Sheridan, I've had the chance to work for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. I even moved out west. I worked in Saskatchewan, where I covered everything from chuck wagon racing and rodeo to junior hockey. Eventually, I moved on to CTV Edmonton, where I got a chance to really kind of get my feet wet, and I reported on the Edmonton Oilers, a lot of NHL hockey. I had a chance to cover the CFL with the Edmonton football team there, and then it wasn't too long after that, I got a chance to join the family at CBC Sports, and that really introduced me to the world of amateur sport. I also continue to cover sports professionally. I got a chance to report ringside on Hockey Night in Canada, and probably a career highlight for me, when I was at CBC, I had the chance to go and report mountainside at the 2014 Winter Olympics in Sochi. And after my time at CBC, that's what kind of got me in the door at Sportsnet. And I've now been there for 6 years, and I've really enjoyed my time sort of as a mainstay on the anchor desk there. It's been a trip.
And much like Carly, I know for certain I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for my time at Sheridan. The reason I chose the program is because I wanted a place where when I left, I'd be able to hit the ground running professionally. And that's exactly what happened. I was lucky enough to work in Victoria for a little while. I also got a job in Edmonton, spent some time also at CHCH News, and eventually landed my first gig with CBC in Windsor. Working as a VJ was something that was totally made possible because of the experiences that we had at Sheridan. And from Windsor, I moved on to Toronto. And after about 5 or 6 years reporting for CBC Toronto and News Network, as well as the National, I became one of the youngest hosts ever of a National Affairs Consumer Investigative program, and that is Marketplace, where I'm working today. Like Carly, I've also been fortunate enough to cover a number of Olympic Games for CBC News, and my work is regularly featured all across the CBC News family, as well as radio and online. And it's been a pleasure to come back to Sheridan and continue to meet with students. And I hope that you all realize and take advantage of all the excellent resources that you have at your disposal there.
Yeah, we take our Sheridan pride with us everywhere we go, whether it's in the field or on the desk. And I think that's really important as you prepare for you students, to step into this busy world of broadcasting and the competitive world of broadcasting. Networking is really important, and being a Sheridan grad is really going to serve you well in the future. So on that note, before we officially take our time down memory lane, we do have a special guest joining us today. I'd like you to put your virtual hands together and welcome Sheridan President and Vice Chancellor, Dr. Janet Morrison is on hand, and she'd like to share a special message with you now. Janet, over to you.
So thank you, everybody. What a pleasure to be here today. Thanks for joining us and for the invitation to be with you. What a great way to celebrate. And I always love hearing from alumni, so thank you very much. Obviously, I would have loved to welcome all of you back to campus, but I am grateful that we're able to get together virtually today so that you can reconnect with each other and with the faculty members who I know helped you launch your careers. This year, all the challenges we faced, it's particularly special to have something to celebrate. We're living through a time that is steeped in great change. And as journalists, you're playing a critical role in documenting this moment in our history. Our social, political, economic institutions are being questioned out, and journalists are on the front lines. You're there to ask hard questions, check the facts, and present the information in a way that will resonate with a really wide array of audiences. You've been telling stories about the pandemic, inequities in our society, and highlighting the advocacy and the action that will help us build stronger communities in the future. Your work matters greatly, possibly more now than ever before. What's more, you've done this at a time when I'm conscious there are more platforms than ever to share stories, and that's changed how we all consume information. So those platforms provide new ways to tell those stories. They also present challenges to your industry and have made your dedication to telling compelling and factual stories even more important. So thank you for your ongoing commitment to finding and sharing the truth, to holding people and organizations accountable, and for sharing the knowledge upon which a free and democratic society is built. So I'm sure all of you have amazing stories of the news you. No matter where your career has taken you, you all began here at Sheridan in our student newsrooms, learning the basic elements of storytelling that I know continue to serve you well. Over the years, our students have won national and international awards. They're acclaimed, like the two you just heard from. And our Sheridan Sun student newspaper has earned multiple awards from the Ontario Community Newspaper Association. Now, of course, the Sun is a website, and our current students continue to win awards for that work. All of this excellence is a direct reflection of our wonderful faculty, my colleagues, and I hope you'll have the chance to reconnect with some of them today. I'm so proud that they built such a strong program and for their leadership in bringing new digital tools and techniques into the classroom so that our students are ready for the reality of life in today's newsrooms. I'm also proud of the work they've done to recognize that telling diverse stories requires voices from varied backgrounds. To do that, we need to encourage diverse voices from all communities to feel welcome on our campuses, including in the journalism program. Our current and retired faculty members have started really important work on this, including taking the initiative to start a bursary to support students from equity-deserving communities, including people who identify as Black, Indigenous, and/or people of color. That kind of action supports students so they can begin their studies in this important profession and go on to infuse their perspectives into their work after graduation. I hope you'll have a chance to reflect on some of this today as you celebrate and look towards the future. As alumni, you're far more than graduates. Our program continues to grow based on your experiences and your interactions. You're a vital stakeholder who'll be a part of our history and a part of our future. Thank you for staying connected, for returning to our classrooms over the years to inspire the next generation of reporters, and for believing in the power of good storytelling to make a difference in the world. We will always be proud to celebrate the impact that you've had on our program, our institution, our communities, and your chosen profession. Have a wonderful reunion. We hope to see you back on campus soon and often. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Morrison, for your warm welcome and greetings. It's hard to believe that the first group of graduates was way back in 1971. Since that time, over 1,000 students have graduated from print journalism, broadcast journalism, the merged journalism program, and the graduate program Journalism New Media, myself included. From newspapers, TV, magazines, radio, and online, journalism at Sheridan has evolved with the changing media landscape.
And we are everywhere. We are in every major newsroom in this country and literally even around the world. And that is something to be proud of. Sheridan grads are reporters, writers, hosts, producers, documentary producers, sportscasters, that would be me, and in all kinds of public relations and even communications positions. Sheridan graduates have won awards, they have been recognized for their contributions, and yes, we are even leaders in our organizations, and we're kind of helping to bring up that next generation of broadcasters that come after us.
This is quite a group for sure, so do enjoy the next hour or so as you reconnect with your former classmates and your professors. And for those of you who are just about to graduate, good luck. Stay focused, and we will be looking for you. You know where to find us, so we hope to hear from you.
All right, and now it is our great pleasure to hand things over to, guess what? Another set of twins. We got some double trouble coming your way today. Please enjoy. So from the class of 2020.
Here are Mo and Hesham Ali. Goodbye, everyone. Enjoy the evening.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mo Ali. I'm originally from Syria, so please excuse my cute accent. I'm happy to be here today to celebrate 50 years of journalism at Sheridan College. My decision to study journalism was very obvious to me. I'm from this part of the world where there's always something happening, there's always news. But when I moved here, I realized there's so much to be changed and make better in here. And it all started with Sheridan. Now to my co-host and my twin brother, Hesham Ali.
Hi everyone, my name is Hesham. I'm his twin brother, I think obviously, and I'm also from Syria. And the reason I came to Sheridan is because I was a journalist before coming to Canada, and I needed a way to migrate my experience here and to also be able to understand the way media works in Canada.
It is our pleasure today to introduce some familiar faces to you. Journalism New Media Coordinator and Professor Sheridan Mansour tracked down some of your retired professors to ask them some important questions.
Well, first, it is our pleasure to introduce to you guys the retired professor, Sherry Lohr. Sherry taught at Sheridan for over 20 years in broadcast journalism and the Merit Journalism program. She helped launch the careers of many.
So can you share with me your most favorite memory?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I have many moments that are fond memories, but I think collectively my fondest memory would be when we went live with our weekly TV show. And because it was kind of the culmination of all of the learning and being able to sit in the control room with the students and forget that you're a faculty member and forget that they're students and we're just one news team putting on a show. That to me was always my favorite time. I always look forward to that moment.
What do you think was the hardest thing about teaching journalism?
I think a lot of students, when they come into our program in journalism, kind of have a misconception about what journalism really is. They learned how to write and they want to tell stories and they want to tell their stories and they want to give their opinions. And that's fabulous. But journalism is about facts, and journalism is about telling stories that are true stories. And you have to learn to put your personal opinion aside. And I think the hardest thing to teach students is, especially in the beginning, is to let go of that, at least temporarily. Follow the stories that your heart is calling you to do. But remember that you're there to tell somebody's story, and the facts matter. The truth matters. And I think that's probably one of the hardest things to get students to really understand. Journalism is hard work. It's not something that comes easily. It takes time, it takes patience, it takes research, it takes listening. So I think that's probably the hardest thing is to get all that through to students, especially in the beginning.
So let me ask you the opposite then. What's the best thing about teaching journalism?
Probably the aha moment when you kind of see the light bulb go on and the students really get it. They suddenly realize, oh, I know what you're trying to say now, and I know what I need to say and how to say it. So I think it's kind of their realization when they come into their own, and you can sort of see that spark, and they're so excited that they've figured it out. So for me, I think that's probably my favorite part.
If you could give a message to all the graduates, we've had many that have passed through our doors, or for the students who are about to graduate, what would it be?
I would say follow your heart. Listen to your gut, but follow your heart. Journalism, especially traditional journalism, is hard, and anybody who's been working out in the industry for a period of time knows how hard it is. But there are many paths that you can go down, and it doesn't mean that you necessarily have to wait for somebody to tell you what to do. We have so many tools at our disposal now to be able to tell the stories that we want to tell. Don't wait for somebody to come along and tell you and give you permission that it's okay to tell that story. Just do it. Anybody can pick up a camera, an audio recorder, buy a computer and type and get a domain name or a YouTube channel. So don't be afraid to just go for it, and don't give up. Don't lose heart. Remember what it was that brought you into journalism in the first place, and try not to lose sight of that.
Kathy Muldoon taught and coordinated the print journalism program after a career as an editor at the Toronto Star. She had the pleasure of being the final editor of the Sheridan Sun print newspaper.
Kathy. Thanks for joining us.
No problem, Shireen. Glad to be here.
Great to
Happy
see
to
you.
help.
We are starting off by asking everyone if they could share their most favorite memory of teaching journalism at Sheridan.
Well, I thought about this a lot, and I keep coming back to this one story that a group of students, student reporters and student editors worked on, and it happened many, many years ago. And unfortunately, there was a rash of assaults that took part around the Sheridan campus. And this team of students really stayed on top of the story and came together and got a chance to interview police and politicians and student, union administrators and the college administrators. And even in a couple cases, some of the victims wanted to come forward and talk to our reporters. And I don't think you could have asked for a more real life experience than that. And I remember that because they stayed so diligently on top of the story, it kind of culminated in a big community meeting in the Sheridan gym. They had a big panel of local politicians and police and people from the school. And it happened right on our deadline for the paper. And we all went to the meeting and then came back to the newsroom in the night. And they worked on writing the story and editing it. And we laid it out and got the headlines and actually sent it off to the printer that night. And I just remember what a great feeling that was. Like, it was totally real world, real industry. And everybody was really proud of themselves. And that one really sticks out in my mind. Really.
Sounds like a great memory.
Yeah, it doesn't get any more real than that. And it was all coming together like a team and everything just clicked perfectly. I have one other thing I remember, and this one kind of is funny, and I kind of tear up a little bit when I think about it all the time, is I used to stress to students all the time to, you're not part of the story, always remain outside the story. So this young woman that went off to Stand Up to Cancer event, and it was one of the ones in a mall where they were doing head shavings. People were shaving their hair to support people with cancer. And she came in afterwards and talked about the story. And I said, that was a really great story that you did. And I said, and by the way, you look really different today. Your hair looks really quite different. And she stood up at the back and she reached up and she pulled off, and it was a wig, and she took part in the thing and had her head shaved. And I said, why would you not have written about this in the story that you did it? And she said, because Kathy, you said never to put yourself in the story. My heart just broke. I thought, so that's, a teachable moment that kind of like the teaching was rules are made to be broken.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I remember that one a lot.
Impressive student.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think was the hardest thing about teaching journalism?
I think one of the hardest things is that we send them out to talk to people. Students get an idea, and it's very difficult when they go out into the community and they aren't treated with the same level of trust or openness that a seasoned member of the media would be treated with. Sometimes they get dismissed a little bit. And I think that's hard because grades are tied to what they produce and marks, and people don't understand that they really need to help these kids out because they're learning, right? And things fall through no fault of their own. And then you see that there's a quota of stories that has to be produced, and then they get farther and farther behind. And also, students often have to do these stories on the weekends, outside of school hours. They may not have the transportation. They need to work to buy food and pay rent. They have boyfriends, girlfriends, parents. In a lot of cases, our students even have children themselves, and they're not able to go to these assignments. And, my heart always goes out to them, and we try to help out in everywhere we can with getting, stories to students who they don't have to go far afield to do them. But, that's really tough. That's really tough when that happens. And a lot of students too, if you're working outside the classroom, you may be alone in your bedroom or in your kitchen, and you don't have that immediate coaching that you would have if you were right in a newsroom and working, and you or I or someone would pitch in and help people work on the story, or they'd be able to turn to somebody and say, what do you think of this lead? You know, Absolutely. What do you think about that? Yeah.
You've hit on something that we suffer through year after year. Every journalism school must. There's a lot for them to balance.
So much for them to balance.
Yeah.
You know, I really admire those. You know, you think about that when they walk across the stage at convocation, everything that you've done to get this far. But it isn't easy, but you know, it is rewarding in the end.
Well, that leads me to my next question. What is the best thing about teaching journalism?
Well, you know, as you know, when you're working in the newsroom, you get a chance to work in smaller groups, often one-on-one, when we're producing a TV show, or, you know, teaching different techniques, or working on the website, or in the day we put out the newspaper. They'd filter through in smaller groups, and we'd all work together as a team and work one-on-one. And it was really great to see. Often a student would come in and, you know, arrive at 7:30 or 8 o'clock in the morning and not have a story. You know, something fell through, one of these things we just mentioned. And you would see a story, but all of a sudden it'd be like, oh, this is happening out there, go and cover that. So they would come back after having nothing and go through the whole process of writing, getting it edited, laying it out, putting a headline on it, and doing all of that, to see it all come together, you know, instantly, as it should. Or also rewarding is when you see the penny drop, and somebody who might have been struggling to come up with a lead or a headline all of a sudden gets it. Like all of a sudden the light goes off, and now I understand what I'm supposed to do. Or to see someone's either first byline on the website, or be really proud if I did this. Always great moments. Yeah.
When they come back from a story and they have managed to somehow interview someone they never thought in their wildest dreams. I remember a student.
Yes, those are big ones.
Yeah, and this.
He talked to me. Yeah.
Right. You know, covering an event where the Prime Minister is speaking and your question gets answered by the Prime Minister is pretty powerful.
Yeah,
so,
and you know, also going off to an internship and hearing back from the employer that your student has like really knocked it out of the park, or that, you know, hearing back from a student that, you know, I was there and I was at the CBC, or I was, you know, in this newsroom, and I remembered back to what you told us, and I knew how to do that, and everybody was really pleased that I knew how to do it. That's always really, really rewarding when you hear back.
Yeah.
It is not always students who are superstars in the classroom. Often ones that don't stand out much in the classroom go off to the real world, and it's like, wow, you know, it all comes together.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
My final question, if you had a message for any graduate over the last 50 years, or any of the new graduates facing us in the next month or so, what would it be?
Well, I was talking to a colleague about this the other day, and I have a couple of things, actually. One is to not overthink all of these new rules and techniques that you've been taught, starting since day one when you walked in. Don't get overwhelmed by all these different ways of writing for the web, or writing for print, or writing a script for a TV newscast. Just tell the story. Don't sit and get paralyzed about which of the 5 W's, you know, Shireen wants me to put first here. Just tell the story as you would tell it to a friend. You know, your job is to interest your viewer or your reader, and to advocate and tell the stories for those who can't do it. You know, it really doesn't matter what order it's all spilling out in. And the other thing that's really important to remember is that even if your career path is going to go in a completely different direction, what you are learning here in this program is how to get information, how to talk to people effectively, how to bring that information back and disseminate it in a clear and concise an understandable way. And that is something that is going to be utilized no matter what job you ever go into, whether it turns out to be, working in a cubicle in a business or leading your own company or whatever it is you want to do. You have to talk to people, you have to get the information, verify that it's true, especially in these days, and, put it out there. And the other thing is never pass up an opportunity to connect with somebody. Don't be too shy and hang back at the back of the room when you might be able to put your name out there or introduce yourself and make a connection that you never know in what instance that may pay off.
Fantastic advice.
Maybe somebody who will remember. I remember back at that event that I saw that Sheridan student who was working that video camera. And, I could really use somebody with those skills now, and have a pack of business cards in your pocket and flap one out to them. And you never know when that will come back. And stay in touch with your fellow graduates, because they're all going to be working someplace one day and they're going to need somebody, and they may pick up the phone and give you a call, and it'll pay off. You just never know. And always reach out and ask somebody who has the job that you want if they might just meet with you or take a phone call or have a cup of coffee and ask questions about how they got to where you want to be. That's
great advice.
That's how it all ends up working in the end. And career design, never miss a career design class.
Great selfless promotion.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was really great, Kathy, for your input.
No problem, Shireen. It's been a real pleasure talking to you, and I wish everybody there the best of luck.
Hi, and now, next, it is our pleasure to introduce to you the part-time faculty, David Common and Helen Surgener. From the CBC, David has been a long-time instructor in the journalism new media program, and now he is teaching in the diploma program with his colleague, Helen.
Hello, I'm David Common with CBC News and an instructor at Sheridan College. I am here where I fold laundry, work, do everything nowadays. Helen is actually at the place we both work in the CBC headquarters in Toronto. Hi, Helen Surgener.
Hi, welcome to Studio 400.
It's lovely to see you, even in this virtual way that so many of us, including all the teaching. So much, of course, has changed over the course of the past year, Helen, but a lot has changed just over the course of our careers as well in a very fast-moving industry, fast-changing.
Yeah, and I mean, just on a personal level, I'm aging, I'm getting a little bit older, it's getting harder to convince people that my ideas are new and fresh and exciting.
You don't look like you're aging. I will give you that. Pandemic has been very kind to you. Look, certainly technology has evolved a lot. Like, I've been in the business now 20 years. I learned how to cut on actual tape. Never used it, but was trained how to do that. It makes me feel really old to talk about that now. But there is so much that's changing, particularly in audience consumption habits. People are listening less to traditional broadcast and much more to on-demand stuff, whether it's podcasts or Netflix or that kind of delivery model for content. And so there's constant changing. What hasn't changed, of course, Helen, is there continues to be demand for stories, well-told news. There's still demand for that out there.
Yeah, and even outside of the pandemic, we're really seeing like a shift in the world of journalism just with US politics. A lot of that has been in response to changes in the White House. I know, David, you were in the United States for the election last November. What was that like?
Well, it was warm because I was covering Texas and Arizona, which turned out to be nice places to be weather-wise. But boy, it was the culmination of 4 wild and raucous years for the United States, for world politics, and for journalism in particular. I tend to think that Donald Trump was not the cause of a lot of things, but symptomatic of what had been happening in American politics in terms of polarization and sort of degrading of trust in institutions, whether it's journalism or the FBI or the national security apparatus. And so lots of distrust, and it's contributed to the creation of things like QAnon. When I was in Phoenix, Arizona, outside the vote count center, there was a guy who almost never had a shirt on. In fact, I don't ever remember him having a shirt on. That was not the defining characteristic for him, though. It was his horns on this sort of furry hat thing. And he would yell into his megaphone. And he actually was like a pleasant guy to talk to when he wasn't ranting and raving. But it was clear that he was deep into conspiracy theories, believed the election had been stolen, believed everything else that Trump and others had been spinning for years. And lo and behold, when there is the siege on the Capitol, the insurrection, there's the same guy sitting in the speaker's chair. So kind of wild seeing that come full circle. But these are very challenging times for journalists. But it also, because they're challenging times, makes it really important to do what we do. We just have to really consider different ways of doing it. Constant evolution.
Yeah, I know you talk about Trump being the cause or the symptom. I mean, on a very basic daily news level, I find, Trump, just by the virtue of him not being there, I spend far less time in my morning, going to Twitter, dissecting tweets, trying to understand what they mean and how that's going to affect international policy. So, you can say that there's a big shift happening in the US, but just the absence of Trump, I think, will affect journalism in, small but meaningful ways too.
Absolutely. And of course, we've had COVID over the past year plus to focus on. I am looking forward to, as we evolve into the next stage, not that COVID is going away, but we'll have greater immunity once these vaccines, of course, get into arms. And it'll get us back to doing the things that I love about this job and have always loved. It's just an outlet for curiosity. I've had the privilege of traveling a lot around the world, being based outside of Canada for CBC as a foreign correspondent. And just meeting people who you would otherwise not get to meet. Sometimes they're Canadians on a farm in rural Saskatchewan. Sometimes it's in the far north in Canada, learning from the Inuit and being fascinated by it. Sometimes it's in the country of Mali in North Africa in the midst of great turmoil, but meeting a mom there who is trying to do right by her kids and trying to raise them in the face of incredible disruption in their lives and violence and fear and worry. So those are kind of the things that still continue to fascinate me. And I love being able to tell and do those kind of things. And Helen, you and I work together as instructors now, but of course we used to work together at World Report, the largest national newscast in the country. More than 1 million people listen to it. And it actually comes out of the very room you're in right now.
Yeah, and I just love getting all that tape that you bring back to us. I think the language geek in me is so excited to hear the different vernacular coming from around the world, the way different communities describe the same thing, and just the language and the accents and the words they use. It's fantastic. And I love, getting to go down the rabbit hole of a lot of information very quickly so that you can figure out in an hour and a half exactly what an NFT is and how you're going to explain it to people. And I love being here at this show in particular. I love the pressure cooker of trying to do both those things at once. Getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning, finding the tape while you're trying to figure out what an NFT is, smashing it together, and, working as hard as you can right up until that deadline. Because I think when we do it well, the stories that we're telling from around the world give Canadians context to understand their daily lives. And that's extraordinarily satisfactory. And then they pay you for it, which is really great.
And I think for a lot of the journalists who are out there watching and listening to this will resonate with you. I hope with the aspiring journalists who are watching it, it will resonate with you. The point is, this is an industry that itself is in some turmoil. There have been job losses in legacy media, places that have traditionally been journalism jobs. But there are increasing numbers of jobs in content creation. And a lot of these sort of skills, both hard and soft skills, transfer all over the place as audience demand for content sort of evolves. At the end of the day, people were painting pictures on cave walls to tell stories. And I can draw a line to what we do today, and that ... line goes to what we'll be doing tomorrow and next year and 10 years from now. And while I won't predict where the industry is going to be 20 years from now, I know that human demand for storytelling and for explaining the times we're in will never go away, because it's always existed. And so I'm just sort of always fascinated by what the next chapter is going to bring. Helen.
Yeah, and human demand, I'd say also, David, for the truth. I mean, you mentioned off the top, people not trusting institutions in the same way, people not trusting their politicians in the same way. We really have a responsibility, whether we're legacy media journalists or content creators. We're all trained journalists, and we do have that obligation to the truth. And it's important to remember that that is really what people want. But it's also important to remember that, every truth can be seen through a different lens. And it's important not to be a stenographer for power, not to just take those institutions at their word, and to really dig down and do a lot of the investigative work that you do, and, bring people the facts in as unbiased or as multi-focused a way as possible.
So I will just wrap by saying this is a business that often seems super serious. We have a blast. In spite of having to talk about serious subjects a lot of the time. And one of the most fascinating things happening in the business right now that is long overdue is seeing more diversity in the workforce, more diversity in the kinds of stories we're telling. And I am so encouraged and enthusiastic, but also inspired and enriched by many of the colleagues that I have and new colleagues who are coming in. And so I can't wait to hear some of your stories and hear some of the ways you do things, because ultimately it is about telling the stories of your community. And there's lots of communities in this country, and we need to hear from them all.
Thank you, David and Helen. Certainly the guy with the horns was my favorite part of the American elections. But anyway, finally, perhaps one of the longest serving professors joining us today is Leslie Butler. Leslie was a pillar in the Sheridan community and a personal mentor for so many students. Here's her interview with Shireen.
Hi, Leslie. Thanks for joining us. Great to see you.
Good to be here, Shireen.
We thought we'd start by asking if you could share a favorite journalism school memory while you were with us at Sheridan.
Yeah, okay. So this is probably the one that stands out among many, of course, but is one from back in the 1990s. So we're going back a bit of a ways. It was a time when the administration of the college had decided, for various reasons that I won't go into here, that they wanted to vet what the Sheridan Sun was going to publish each week. So the vice president academic was going to check the copy of the Sheridan Sun. And of course, Roy Wilson, who was the managing editor of the time, didn't sit very well with him. And he was faced with the dilemma of standing up to the administration on something they wanted to do, but faced with the other problem of wanting to show the students about the independence of a free press. And so Roy did a very interesting thing, and this is why it sticks with me, is because the administration insisted that this was part of their purview, that they could do this. And Roy pointed out successfully that the Sheridan Sun was part of OCNA, which was the Ontario Community Newspapers Association. And he used that very successfully to show that we had the right, as an independent community newspaper, to be independent of that kind of editorial control. So it was very interesting, and he won that. And I'll never forget the impact that had on the students. So it was a great story.
Fantastic. When you think about teaching journalism, what do you feel is the hardest thing about it?
Well, I loved it. So it's, I would say that the hardest thing is to deal with, on a regular basis, the gap between the ideals of journalism and the practice, and managing that with the students as you're trying to educate them, as you're trying to help them grow into the role. of a journalist. So a good example of this, of how it might come up, is you talk in your classes about the ideals of watchdog journalism, holding power to account, and all of those wonderful ideals. And then the students might come in the next day and say, well, I just saw a piece last night on such and such a news channel or in such and such a newspaper that might be, violate any of those ideals. It might be really biased. It might be sensationalizing the news. It might be, not covering a story because of a financial interest that the company that owns the newspaper also has, so it's managing the ideals which bring people into journalism with the realities of actually gathering and disseminating news.
I think all of us would agree with you that that is a really big challenge. How do you reconcile that as a professor?
Well, I think you kind of get to the point, whether it's as a professor or as a practicing journalist, is that you just have to strive and do your best, and you do live in the real world. The ideal world maybe brings us there and keeps us going, but try to manage the students' expectations around what they really can reasonably do within the constraints of the profession, if you will.
Yeah. So let me flip it the other way. What is the best thing about teaching journalism?
Well, I think I've kind of touched on it already, but it's that sense that we're on the right side. We're on the good side of our role in the entire, sort of democracy and all of that. But on a more personal level, it's really the best thing is seeing the students. They come in, they're wide-eyed, and yes, they have that idealism that I spoke of, but they're growing into the role. And it takes them a while. And at first, they're too nervous to pick up the phone, and afraid to press a source for information. And then you see over the course of 2 years how they are towards the end, and they've gained that confidence, and they've screwed their courage to the sticking place and made the phone calls and got the good story, and then they see it in publication or in broadcast, and you can just see the pride they feel and knowing what a challenge it was for them. I would say that's probably the most rewarding thing.
If you could share a message to either the people who've joined us today who graduated years ago or recently, or to the new graduates that are about to leave us in a month or so, what would it be?
I think I would say take everything that you've learned and that you've become in the program, take it with you, and wherever you go, whether it's the transferable skills of writing, editing, communicating effectively, whether it's those ideals that I've touched on, whether it's just curiosity, take that with you and use it wherever you are. Because I think the foundations of a good journalism education really are transferable to so many situations. So, in my life, many of the skills I learned in journalism, I applied to things like advocating to have my local school not closed down by the provincial government, and we were successful. And you can be advocating for your child in a school or in the workplace or whatever. So I would say that take those skills, use them, and they'll be with you wherever you go.
Fantastic advice. Thanks, Leslie, for joining us.
Good. Great to see you, Shireen. Good luck to everyone.
And now, next, it's our pleasure to introduce Cheryl Valander, Coordinator and Journalism Professor of the Merit Journalism Diploma Program, and also Nathan Mallett. He's the coordinator of the Public Relations Program and longtime journalism professor. For both of them to now give a toast.
All right. Well, hello, I'm Nathan Mallett, the former coordinator of the Print Journalism Program.
And I'm Cheryl Valander, the current journalism coordinator.
Cheryl and I both graduated in 1996 from the journalism program at Sheridan. At the time we graduated, Sheridan journalism was 25 years old. After graduating, we had the opportunity to both work in the industry and then return to Sheridan to help shape the future of the program. And today we celebrate all the success of the journalism program over the last 50 years.
Since its inception, there have been over 2,000 journalism graduates from Sheridan. Today, we celebrate all of your successes and more. We are so proud of your achievements.
So get your drinks ready as you join us in raising a glass to the past, the present, and the future of journalism at Sheridan College.
As we look forward to new successes, new challenges, and 50 more years. We now invite you to join us for a casual visit located in the Mix and Mingle tab on the left sidebar. This is an opportunity for you to visit with your former and current faculty and each other.
You'll be able to turn on your cameras and microphones and interact with each other. There'll be up to 20 people on camera at one time in each room. We also invite you to take a tour down the Memory Lane project by clicking on the tab also located in the left sidebar. There we've included a number of Sheridan Sun papers from the past, photos, projects, even some past magazine issues. If you have any questions, you can post them in the event chat, and one of the event organizers will be more than happy to help.
We want to thank you for joining us today. We hope that one day soon we'll be able to celebrate in person. So thank you and have a wonderful rest of the day.